everybody, and welcome to a special Top 10 video. Today we're going to be counting down our Top 10 favorite MCU movies in anticipation of Avengers Infinity War. Turn on the gauntlet. Oh yeah, there it is. And we've got Thor's hammer. So, ooh, geez, that's loud. Anyway, we'll jump right into it. Do you have any honorable mentions before we start?
No, I'm very happy with my list, and
I'm very happy with my list. In fact, after I saw your list, I did change my number 10 to your number 10 because it was outside the number 10. So let's start right off. Our number 10s are the same, and that is
Avengers: Age of Ultron.
That's right.
Now, it landed on my number as in my number 10 because it's actually one of the MCU films that got better with time.
That's true. I rewatched all of the movies to do this list. I rewatched everything in universe chronology order. And yeah, Age of Ultron was actually better than I remember it being. I think that it fits in really nicely in the story, more so than I remember it.
Yep.
And I think that once we see Infinity War, it'll actually fit in really nice as the middle arc in the Avengers trilogy.
I think so because it's just one of those things where, like, at the time where it came out, it was like, and then, like, as more films have come out and more little things have happened, it's like, oh, there's some really interesting stuff happening in that movie. Okay.
All right. So your number 9 is?
My number 9 is actually The Incredible Hulk, which I feel belongs in the top 10. Now, I've heard things from people like the special effects don't hold up, but you know what? I still enjoy movies from like 1978, and I'm perfectly happy. To me, the effects are enough. The story's good, the actors are good. And actually, like, rewatching it side by side with Invincible Iron Man, with the original Iron Man, I very much enjoy this over Iron Man.
I will tell you to do it.
I don't enjoy it over Iron Man, but I do like it, and I do think that it's better than people give it credit for. When I was rewatching it, I'd say up until Avengers: Age of Ultron, it was solidly in my top 10 for a while. And I think that as more sort of origin movies have come out, that one has sort of creeped out of the top 10 for me.
Yeah, and I can see why, but there's still something really good about it, and great villain. Like, it's one of the times that Marvel actually gave us plenty of screen time with our villain, and developed him, and semi-introduction of the Super Soldier Serum.
Yeah, that's true. It definitely sets up Captain America: The First Avenger very well.
Yeah, I mean,
I love that connection because that's not in the comic universe. That connection is
no, it's not.
Yeah, so I really like the connection and the thread that they created there.
No, I'm super impressed. Love the Abomination. And I hope we get the leader someday because he kind of was born in the film and then they dropped it.
Yeah, and I actually hope we get the Abomination again because
he is locked away.
He is somewhere.
Yeah.
He almost was on the Avengers if you watch The Consultant.
Yep.
All right, my number 9 is further up on your list, so we'll pause for that. Our number 8, your number 8 is higher on my list, and my number 8 is higher on your list, and actually. Our respective number 8s are each other's number 7s.
Okay.
So your number 7, which was my number 8, is
Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 1. I thought it was a great origin movie / teen film. It's fun. It's good storytelling. It works, And having spent a lot of quality time with Volume 1 and Volume 2, Volume 2 just doesn't make it. Volume 2 is still fun. I really feel I was heavily influenced by... It's funny that I'm influenced by the father element in both movies.
Yeah.
Because watching him lose his mother, even though they're completely unrelated events, still made me think about losing my father. And then him, like, being in contact with his father that he never knew he had, in the second one, and then losing the person who raised him as a father in the second one, I mean, that just emotionally, like, ripped a hole in me. But watching them again objectively and putting the emotions aside, Volume 1 is really the way to go.
Yeah, I very much enjoyed Volume 1. Tim Gunn said something interesting before the movie came out, that Rocket Raccoon was the heart of the movie and of the team, and he's right, because there's a great emotional core to that character. And one of my favorite scenes is when we first see Rocket's vulnerability, when they first get into the kiln and they're putting their shirts on and stuff, and Peter sees the implants in Rocket's back, and that to me really, you really got to see his vulnerability. You got to see him, the juxtaposition of how he acts and how he really is, and that to me is always interesting to see, characters that are so well developed, that because we do this a lot in our own lives, where the person who we are and the person we want to be are usually two different things, and Rocket very much acts the way he wants to be, but he really is something different, and that's explored even more in Volume 2, which is why I think I really like Volume 2 more than you. But Volume 1 is fantastic, great introduction. On paper, that movie should never have worked, and it works fantastic.
That's very, very good.
My number 7 is the original Iron Man,
Which is my number 8.
and
It's a classic.
It's so good.
It really built this Marvel universe.
Yeah, it really builds the tone, and really sets up the realism, the way that they're going to introduce all of these elements, these magical, sci-fi, whatever elements, in this realistic way. And Robert Downey Jr. does an amazing job, has always done an amazing job as Tony Stark. Jon Favreau, the director, I was never a huge fan of his other films, of his 1 or 2 other films that he directed, but just really knocked it out of the park. I think that he had to show a level of restraint in this that he hasn't in some of his other films, in his previous films, and that really made for a more creative, better film, and I really enjoyed it. I think that it still holds up to this day. Again, rewatching these 18 movies, and here it is at my number 7. So I think it's definitely one of the best ones.
Oh yeah, super strong.
All right, number 6. I'm gonna go ahead and take a nap while you talk about this one.
My number 6 is actually AntMan, which, again, underdeveloped movie villain, which of course Marvel has had a problem with. But the movie is fun, funny, a good origin story, and please, like, one of the top 2 Marvel characters that I love as a narrator. So I mean, it's okay. Yeah, just it doesn't do it for some people.
This was
Not even thought about on your list.
This was the last movie on my list. This is below Iron Man 2 and Iron
you
Man
still
3
rewatched it.
and Thor: The Dark World. I rewatched it because I wanted to give it a fair shake, and I disliked it even more watching it again. I really do not like that movie. And the more I watch it, the more I don't like it.
Who do you not like so much in that movie?
Paul Rudd.
Wow.
I don't like Paul Rudd. I just don't think he belongs. I think he's in a completely different movie than everyone else. I really do. I think everything else about that movie is Marvel, and he is not. So.
In the meantime, my biggest problem with that movie is the villain. I don't even remember the actor who played Yellow Jacket.
I mean, I'll agree. I think that villain, the villain in that whole. I enjoy the heist aspect of the movie, and I enjoy the interaction within the universe, like him going to the Avengers compound. I love the relationship between Hope and Hank. I love the storyline with Hank and his past, and I love him wanting to get Scott involved and all that stuff. I just cannot stand Paul Rudd in this movie. I love Paul Rudd too. What's funny is I very much enjoy him in Civil War, not so much in Ant-Man. But
that's fun. That is really funny.
It is. It's interesting, isn't it? It's just a weird thing. I don't know what it is. It could, and I'll be honest with you, it could very well be my influence of the fact that I was so excited about Edgar Wright. About Edgar Wright directing the movie, and I followed it from the very beginning. I saw the leaked test footage. I was blown away by what my idea of an Edgar Wright Ant-Man movie was. And then when I saw the movie, I feel like I could see the parts of the script that Edgar Wright had written and the parts of the script that Adam McKay and Paul Rudd had rewritten, and it completely fell apart for me.
See, I don't let any of that garbage bother me because then I wouldn't even be able to enjoy Justice League.
Well, typically, but in the same token, is none of that stuff bothered me for Justice League. I still very much enjoyed Justice League for what it was, and because of my love for those characters, it could be that I don't have as much love for Ant-Man or did.
See, I love Scott Lang. I love that his daughter becomes Stature in the Young Avengers. Like I already, sorry, Gauntlet.
Sorry, Thanos.
I already like dig the characters, so I felt like everything I thought about Ant-Man, I thought was well embodied in the two Ant-Men we got in this movie through Hank and through Scott. In a way that I never thought I was going to appreciate. And I was just like, well, Hope is no Janet. But then, like, the whole thing with Janet was the Wasp. I really liked it.
And the thing, I'll tell you the exact moment that ruins the movie for me is when Hope and Hank are having this very emotional moment, and then Paul Rudd comes in and ruins the moment. And to me, it's not Scott Lang, it's Paul Rudd. I just see Paul Rudd, like... And it just completely throws me out of the movie. So your number 5 is also my number 9, and that is
Thor Ragnarok.
Thor.
The first time they got a Thor movie right. Now, I actually like Thor the Dark World a lot, but it has the worst villain ever. What? Or one of the worst villains ever. So, like, I like him. I even don't mind Natalie Portman. A lot of people felt that she phoned that one in. I thought she was still fun and charismatic, even if she wasn't having a great time making the movie.
It's interesting because with Natalie Portman, I feel like she thinks she's in a different movie.
In a couple of scenes, yes.
And I think it's slightly visible in the first Thor movie, but it's not. I actually very much enjoy the first Thor movie, and actually when I rewatched it for this, it almost was in my top 10, and I felt like I was like, wow, this movie's a lot better than I thought it was, because I like the emotional journeys of the main characters, and when they nail that, and then they can make the rest of the movie really good, like that really gets to me. And I think that in Thor: The Dark World, there's almost no journey for Thor.
Okay. So this is.
Hang on. Let me. So Thor Ragnarok actually makes Thor's journey in the Dark World better for me. You have in Thor 1, you have this war-hungry, heir apparent that Odin, refuses to let him, ascend to the throne because of his recklessness, and bans him to Earth, takes away his power, and then he has to learn selflessness and respect and to not appreciate war before he can come back. Then he comes back in the Dark World. He, which is after Avengers, right?
Yes.
He then has to maintain peace in the 9 realms, and so he's being taught that he needs to maintain peace, and he does that, and then he needs to sort of like go sow his royal oats, as one would say in Coming to America. And so by the end of Thor: The Dark World, he realizes that he can't stay on Asgard. He needs to be away from Asgard in order to really, to be himself
with
for a
the
while.
artificial blessing from his not dad.
Right.
Because it's Loki.
Right.
Which again, Loki steals that entire movie. Which is really funny.
He's very complimentary, and their relationship is their core relationship is great, and their development is great, and I love the way that movie ends. There are certain
and it carries
moments
beautifully into Ragnarok.
Oh, absolutely,
Yeah.
and that's what I mean is like that middle chunk is now better because of Thor Ragnarok, and you see the end of that journey. There are moments though when they're both on the spaceship and there's that comedy routine, just does not have the legs that that scene just is terrible, more terrible every time I see it.
In Ragnarok?
No, in Thor: The Dark World. The one where they steal
the ship.
Oh my God! They steal a spaceship in both movies.
Yes, of course. That's what I'm saying. And I actually like. But you know what? Anyhow. Dark World for me. Again, it was just an awful villain. Of course, Tom Hiddleston steals the show, but like he shouldn't. It shouldn't be his to steal. I love that young woman that plays Jane Foster's assistant. Like she's my
Kat
other.
Denning.
She is my other favorite Marvel narrator. It's just. Yeah, for me, the biggest problem is the villain. All the comedy and all the other things,
So
everything else.
how's Thor Ragnarok? Because that's the one that's actually on the list.
Oh my God! Right. Anyhow, I said I feel very confident. There's no honorable mentions, but I do have a very special place in my heart for those first two Thor movies.
It's interesting because Ant-Man and Thor: The Dark World are like the bottom of my list.
Of course, but no, there's something. The thing is, there's something charming there, you know. And again, like Thor losing the mom and how the whole thing.
There's definitely some
up.
moments, and there's definitely some moments. And Thor Ragnarok for me is. What I love about that is that now Thor has been away. He comes back. He's investigating all of this happenstance about what do the Infinity Stones mean. Along the way, he's seeing the visions of Ragnarok,
Which actually helps complement Age of Ultron.
Yeah,
because all that's
true.
Thor
That's
stuff
true.
that was
That's
shoved
true.
into Age
Yep.
of Ultron
Yep.
now actually starts to play out.
Yep. And he goes and when he comes back to Asgard, his attitude has changed. And now he wants to mend Asgard. And then through that he realizes that he needs to ascend to the throne. He needs to protect Asgard. And then by the end of the movie, he realizes that Asgard is a people, not a place, and therefore he needs to allow Asgard to be destroyed, and thereby saving Asgard. And the maturity that he uses. It's so interesting because Thor Ragnarok you wouldn't associate with the word maturity, but I really feel like the character of Thor becomes.
Oh no, he's
mature by the end
amazing
of the movie.
for a movie that's full of action and laughs.
Yeah.
It's like his journey is like solidified.
So fantastic, and I really enjoyed that movie. So my number 5 is Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 2. I actually think that it's better than Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 1 because of the father relationship and because of what I mentioned before about Rocket's journey into from the first movie into the second. And I don't know what it is. I really appreciated what James Gunn did, how he brought it to the idea in most action movies or comic book movies is you always want to go bigger and badder. In the second one, he goes more tender. In the second one,
I mean, there's a lot of big bad action, but
he brings the emotional core down, and he really makes these characters vulnerable. He wounds them emotionally, like right in the first act, like right in the first third of the movie. The first plot point there is this team going to stay together? We hear the song, break the chains of love, and you're wondering, is this gonna last? Is this team gonna last? And then to see it come full circle by the end of the movie, where they are all working together, they're saving the galaxy literally, and the chains don't break, and the love and the team is there, and on top of that, the relationship between Peter and Yondu and Peter and Ego, and seeing that I love that sort of that triangle relationship that you see used in so many other ways to be used with fathers and sons, and that really, and because I have 2 sons, maybe that's why it really connected with me, and issues I've had with my father in the past, and it really spoke to me and affected me and resonated with me, and I honestly think it's better than the first one. But as you can see, they're both in my top 10, and there's only 2 other franchises, I guess, that have 2 in the top 10. So that's my number 5, Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 2. So number 4, your number 4 is higher up on my list.
Yep.
And
your number 4 is higher up on my list.
No.
Oh no, you're right.
No,
it's not there at all. Yeah.
Yeah, this is not. I was a little surprised this one was not in your top 10.
Again, very much like it, but I was being strict.
My number 4 is Captain America: Civil War. And upon rewatch, I again. It goes to the emotional story of the main character of this film.
Did you find it was like a little bit better watching it again?
Yeah,
yeah.
And I mean, I liked it. I liked it a lot to begin with, and
Well, here's my journey with it. I loved it when it premiered. Mm-hmm. Like I was crazy with it. then I was like, you know what? Like, this is just not like quite as good as I remember. Now rewatching
Is it because it felt too much like Avengers 2.5?
On the rewatch, it felt too much. The first time, I was like, no, this movie is exactly what it should be. And then rewatching it, it was like, this is kind of Avengers 2.5. And then, after watching Spider-Man Homecoming a million times, actually, Spider-Man Homecoming is one I did not rewatch for this. Because I have rewatched it so many times.
Mm-hmm.
So, but anyhow, on the rewatch, I did like it better.
Mm-hmm.
But again, I was being like very strict to myself, and it didn't make my list because there's a lot of great elements going for it. But I just felt like for the overall, I don't know, there was something a little bit missing for me.
It's interesting because for me, again, first time I saw it, amazing. Fantastic. A little not quite as good as I thought it was going to be, and I think that I think that the problem with that year was Batman v Superman came out first. It was a huge disappointment, superhero versus superhero, and that affected a lot of people's opinions of Civil War going into it. And then as I spent some time away from Civil War, I kept thinking, oh well, it's just Avengers 2.5. It's just Avengers 2.5. Then I'd go back and rewatch it. I'd be like, no, man, this is a Captain America movie, and this is a good Captain America movie.
Yeah.
And then I would spend some time away from it, and I again would go back to my, it's still kind of Avengers 2.5 because you always think of that airport scene. You know? And then I rewatched it for this, and I realized, no, this is a solid Marvel movie, and it is a solid movie in general, and it is a great Captain America movie. And it goes to the emotional core storytelling of Cap and you know, the events coming out of Winter Soldier, and him needing to reconnect with Bucky, and him needing to find him and protect him, and the rift that it separates between him and Tony, and and the things that he knew that we discover by the end, that then cause the big conflict and fight at the end. And I really feel like it was very well developed, very well done. And what's interesting to me, and the Russo brothers even mentioned this in an interview, is that the tone of the movie is meant to start out as though you're watching Avengers 2.5. And the tone then changes to something else by the end of it. And I think that they very successfully do that. And I think that possibly could have been my underlying issues when I first was watching the movie, is that the tone does kind of shift from one to another through the movie.
In the meantime, the tonal shift is like good, and I don't know, maybe I should have ranked it higher, but there's nothing wrong with it. It's just I feel so much stronger about everything else I watched.
Yeah. And sometimes that's all it takes. I mean, to be honest, this list was very tight, I think probably for both of us.
Oh, no, absolutely. But at the end, I was like, all these were really just about, like, ultimately how they made me feel, like, rewatching them. It really was. And, like, even watching, we didn't talk about my number 4 yet, right?
No, it's higher. It's my number 3.
Okay, but anyhow, there's a lot of them that it was just like, wow, this is so much better rewatching it now.
Yeah.
You know?
So speaking of that, number 3, so your number 3 was also my number 6.
Yes.
And that is?
Spider-Man Homecoming.
Yep.
Which, as I've said, I did not even rewatch it for this experiment. I watched it repeatedly all summer. I'm like, it came out at like the beginning of summer, and I saw it in the theater 2 days in a row, and then I saw it a third time in the theater, and then I bought that sucker on Blu-ray, and I have watched that Blu-ray I don't know how many times, because this movie just makes me smile, and I'm happy, and it's great storytelling, and I know a lot of people have beef with it, and I'm sorry, like, it feels like modern Spider-Man to me, and maybe he shouldn't have an Iron Man suit, whatever, but like, look, this is the Marvel Cinematic Universe. This is what we were handed. We got Spider-Man in an awkward time. It works really well for me. And you know what? I separate the Iron Man thing just fine.
Spider-Man has never been a huge, like, connection character for me, but I really like the Spider-Man movies. I love the Sam Raimi movies, except for maybe number 3. But
I always connect to Spider-Man because I'm always broke too, and I mean, it just makes sense.
right. But and the thing is
Which
that
does that mean I relate to Aunt May too?
possibly, in my mind, this movie is the best solo movie out of all of them. Except for maybe our number 1 pick. It really is, in my opinion, the most cohesive, solid, solo film where there aren't a bunch of guest stars. There's really just, Peter and Iron Man, and then the villain, and what a villain.
Right, Vulture. Okay, so Vulture story brings us back to a Marvel that focused on its villain, right? And I like the last, and rewatching these, I was like, wow, like, Incredible Hulk got it right. Like, we really focused on the villain there. And then it was like, and after that, it just seemed like the villains got very sidetracked. And, we just kept cruising along. But this movie really brought it back to, we've got a fully developed villain right from the first scene for you.
Yeah, and I love the way it interweaves with the current history of the MCU. And the way that, the Vulture's storyline develops, and his relationship to Peter, and his relationship through his daughter to Peter by the end, and just the tension by the end. And I love the resolution of the film too, where nobody gets killed, it's not destroyed. Like it was such it really brings and Peter having to pick himself up under the building, and just
that's such a huge moment.
Such great little touchstones.
And that was
moments.
A beautiful comic book moment brought to life on the screen.
Yeah.
That just worked incredibly.
So super great film, and that was your number 3, Spider-Man: Homecoming. My number 3 was your number 4, and that is The Avengers, the first one, and obviously the best Avengers movie. So far. We'll find out next week.
And it continues to improve. I remember I hadn't watched it for years. I watched it. I loved it. I bought the Blu-ray, whatever. And then I bought the Blu-ray for Winter Soldier. Watched that a couple times because I love that movie. And then I rewatched the Avengers one. And this is back after I bought that Blu-ray, right? When it first came out. And I was like, oh my God, Avengers is so much better than I remember. And look at this person disobeying Nick Fury. And Nick Fury goes after him with a rocket launcher. And I was like, oh my God, because they already knew they were infiltrated by Hydra, the people working on the film. I was like...
Did they?
I think so.
I don't think they did.
I think so. I think someone had infiltrated by Hydra in their noggin. Anyhow, that moment in the movie screams that to me.
Yeah.
And I think Kevin Feige,
possibly,
right, had a clue, right? So that moment in the movie screams that to me. And of course, after that movie, we immediately got Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D., the TV show, which the after effect spilled into the show heavily on the Hydra thing. Yeah. So I was like, wow. So it blew me away rewatching it. Rewatching it again now, I really dig this film a lot.
The same for me is that once Age of Ultron came out, I didn't go back to watching the first Avengers for a while. And I don't even think I saw it once after after Age of Ultron. And so going back and rewatching it for this, I was reminded of how really great that movie is. I mean, technically wise, as far as filmmaking goes, the editing, the choices, the story choices, the way that he builds some of the scenes and some of the tension.
Yeah.
I mean, absolutely amazing. I mean, it in my opinion is Joss Whedon's best work of everything he's ever done.
And Hawkeye gets the short end of the stick in this one, which is funny because him not getting the short end of the stick in Age of Ultron actually pushed Age of Ultron down for me because I felt there was just way too much time developing.
Well, and what's interesting is that if you watch it in universe continuity, you watch Thor and then you watch Avengers, and Hawkeye debuts in Thor, so you actually get to see him in action in Thor. Then you go right into the Avengers and you see that, so that kind of mitigated that effect of he's not in the movie that much. And also I think
he's really only in Thor for a few moments. He doesn't even get to do full action. He's just on that thing.
Yeah, but his whole attitude, the way he's presented, and then knowing that you're going to see him again in Age of Ultron and Civil War really helped to mitigate the effects of the Avengers, of his role in the Avengers. So All right, so that's number 3 for me, and wouldn't you know it, our number 1 and our number 2s match up perfectly. So our number 2s is
Captain America: The Winter Soldier.
that's right. Very close to being my number 1, but this movie is just flawless.
It's really
I think
good.
Avengers is flawless too, but this movie to me is absolutely impeccably clean and concise and so well done. The tension is so well built and such a tribute to those political thrillers.
That's the thing. It mastered being multiple genre. It was a superhero action film. It was the political thriller at once. The Hydra reveal was wonderful, and Captain America got to be the hero you want him to be. You know, the person telling everyone, you know, I know you're afraid, and I know this is a risk, but you can stand up and fight. Like, I was just like,
And just the
So
way
great.
the way that they use like modern day fears and you know political atmospheres to generate the motivation behind the villains in this movie, the security aspect, the social media aspect, the way that they weave these everyday elements into generating, you know, the real threat in the movie, the name dropping of Stephen Strange in the
Yes.
future,
as a potential threat, no
as a
less.
potential threat in the future. A lot of people miss that. I see a lot of videos online about how it kind of messes up the continuity. He says it. He says in it that a threat either now or in the future, and
Yeah.
that's what the algorithm that Dr. Zola created is doing. Is it's saying Stephen Strange. There's an algorithm that says that he is a potential threat in the future.
Right, because who knows if what happened to him hadn't happened to him, who knows what kind of threat he would be as a scientific genius? You know, he could be that universe's Doctor Doom if circumstances made it.
What if?
What if? Could you imagine if we got what if movies?
Man, Phase 4, what if? That would be fantastic. So yeah, Civil War is Winter Soldier's fantastic, and that was both of our number 2s, and our number 1, if you haven't guessed it already, is Black Panther.
Yes.
I
Because, like,
rewatched it. Wakanda Forever.
Wakanda Forever, man.
I rewatched this again in the theaters during my continuity watch through, and just solidified it for me that it is, in my opinion, the best MCU movie that there is.
At this moment in time, like, I can't disagree. I've tried so hard to be just super impartial, but like it is a great standalone story, you know. And I mean, there's a lot of things that people have used to kind of like nitpick or whatever, and I was just like, no, these things aren't the things to nitpick. These things are the things that make it great, you know. Like, it's like, wow, like Black Panther like lost 3 fights in that movie if we're going to be real serious about it. But I was like, that's what makes the hero more fantastically terrific.
Yeah.
Oh, he never would have won in the end if not for. Yeah, I know, it's called teamwork. Yeah, like, it's like, you know, the movie's good.
A leader inspired to overcome the
Yeah.
struggle, the conflict.
A fantastic and supporting cast actually does supporting.
Yeah. Ah.
I can't help that. I really.
What do you think? He's going to take a laser sword and face the whole First Order on his own?
Yeah, leave this for Luke Skywalker and Astral Projection.
Exactly.
But I really like this movie. I don't know how it's going to move up or down my list in the future. It just makes me happy when I watch it. Like this has a wonderful blend of story and action and comedy, and you know, I don't know. I don't know why it doesn't work for some people.
You know, and the thing is like I feel like I can separate my objective opinion from my personal opinion, and objectively speaking, Black Panther is a solid movie.
It really is.
It does have some of those like superhero action movie tropes, the action scenes or the weird cool technology that's really in there for no reason, but the thing is that those are so far and few between in this film, and that this movie really extends and brings such a solid, you know, scope of storytelling on top of topical conversations that it's having about society today, and that's really what elevates this movie to me. Same thing with Winter Soldier, is it does the same thing. It really brings in these things that people are talking about and thinking in their daily lives, adds that on top of such a great story, well executed production, and entertaining, popcorn movie. Bringing all those elements together and doing it in such a way that you feel good about it afterwards really makes it the best movie.
And there's no room to disagree because it's just so, it's everything. It really is like the everything kind of movie, surprisingly. I know every theater. I've had 4 theater sittings for this movie, and every single one of them has been like great, and the audience has just been exceptionally receptive. And you know what? I mean, that could play into how the movie makes you feel. Just the fact that I have like 4 instances with a really jazzed up audience could play into it. But
I completely agree.
I trying to be objective, especially after the last time I saw it. It's just like I really love this movie.
It's a fantastic movie, and again, Black Panther's our #1 Marvel movie for both of us. So that's our list of our top 10 MCU movies. Comment below and give us your top 10. What do you think are the best Marvel Cinematic Universe movies, and how excited are you to see Avengers: Infinity War? I'm crazy excited. The hype is so real. My hair is standing up on my arm like Peter Parker's. I cannot wait to see this movie.
Peter, I'm excited. I already love Spiderman, so.
And I'm excited to see what they're going to do in Avengers 4, and what Phase 4. If that's
I'm totally expecting them to kill some characters in this movie. I'm waiting to see what happens to Cap and Iron Man. I'm pretty sure you can't kill Thor once you literally just figured out how to make a good Thor movie. You can't kill him right now.
I have a feeling that they may not die in this movie, or if they do die in this movie, we're still going to see these characters in Avengers 4. But I'm excited to see how these next 2 movies play out. And I'm really excited about Captain Marvel and how she's going to play into the Infinity War storyline, if at all.
Oh, I really want to see Captain Marvel. But Brie Larson looks amazing from our on-set photos. I'm very happy.
Very excited. So thank you for joining us. And again, comment below on what your top 10 favorite MCU movies are, and we'll catch you next time.